Welcome to another vintage fishing reel service video. In this episode we have a Daiwa Apollocast 108S Spincast reel. And the best that I can figure, this was introduced right around 1983. And these are considered pretty good Spincast reels. This one, as you can see, is dirty. It's got a lot of boat rash. It's not grease bound, but it's a little tight. So it just needs a good cleaning and lubrication. And as with a lot of the reels I do, have I ever been in one of these before? Nope. I mean, I'm not going totally blind because I've done enough reels that I have a little bit of idea of, some of the repetitive engineering that you see from reel to reel. But we'll go through this together and see what it's all about and see if we can get this one cleaned up and looking good and fully operational in terms of what it was intended to do. So the cap unscrews, a lot of lake scum in there. We've got a pickup pin for our line pickup, nice big one, that's good. And it looks like we've got a nut we've got to take off there. So I'll just take and loosen that up. And off comes the spinner head. Looks like someone's already taken the line out of here, so finally I don't have to do that. Put that in the parts tray. And then we want to make sure, and I don't know if this has which way's which, but I'm guessing this way is to turn the drag off. Wait a minute. Nope, just the opposite. So you turn it to the right to loosen that drag, and then that way this E-clip won't be so tight. So we don't even need a screwdriver to get it off. If you have that drag all the way advanced, it's pushing against the spool and makes that E-clip really tight. So at any rate, we should now be able to, let's see. Well, it looks like we've got a little, that's always interesting when you see a drag washer backed right up against an E-clip. And then there's a groove that it wants to get in. And so trying to get that confounded thing off there without breaking it and getting it out of that groove is always fun. Don't really like that design. I wonder if it ever had a washer that somebody lost. I don't know why you would put a drag washer right up against an E-clip. There it came. I'll have to see if I can find a schematic and see if that was supposed to have a washer on the other side of that, but not a great design if not. All right, so there's your spool. Looks like it's made out of pot metal. And then we got another much wider drag washer. And it's pretty dirty in there. And that confounded groove again. There's that one. And then you got your pressure plate here, which that tab fits into that drag adjustment screw. You got your bait clicker here. Okay. And I guess I'll go ahead and take off the handle. Don't see any washers or anything there. And so now we're ready to remove the side plate. And as I suspected, that top screw is long because that also acts as the pivot point for that button there. So let's take off the side plate. Yeah, pretty nasty in there. You gotta wonder if anybody's ever serviced this. If maybe they did. Either that or the factory was crazy liberal with the grease. I mean, look at that. Yeah, that might have been a fisherman. I don't know. But that's an awful unnecessary amount of grease in there. All right, what do we got with the, oh good, the pinion gear and shaft. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's going to come out without us having to take off any clips or anything. Just look at the grease. Jeez. Okay, and then, yeah. And then we can push out the main gear. More grease. I mean, just full of grease. And then we've got this little anti-reverse pawl in here, which I think I'll just pop off of there. So I'll have to try to remember that this more acute tooth here is the one that faces towards the front of the reel. So we don't want to go on like that. We want to go on like that. If I think, wasn't that the way it was? No, I'm not quite sure, but I think. We'll figure it out. It ain't that big of a deal to figure out. All right, now we can take off this drag knob, and that's going to be a normal lefty-loosey. Sometimes they're reverse threaded, but that's just going to be a lefty-loosey. And you can take that out, and then this little dial will come out, so you can get all that cleaned up in there. And it looks like if you care, and if it matters, the side with the 4 little holes in it faces to the front of the reel. The other side doesn't have those 4 little holes. So that's all there is to tear down on the Daiwa Apollocast 108S. So put all those parts in the tray. I already lost a screw. No, that's right. There was a short and long. So we'll take those over to the sink and clean them with a toothbrush and WD-40 with a final scrubbing with Dawn dishwashing soap to get off all the WD-40 and other oil residues. And we'll make sure to get into all of these journals and so on with a cotton swab. And again, I've said this before, but that's the most time I spend is actually cleaning parts. It's not the disassembly, the lubrication, reassembly. It's the time that it takes to clean these. But that's what I'm going to go do, and I'll be back just like that. All right, let's get all these parts out so you can see what all's there. Now, you want to be careful on this button. There is a bushing in there that when you start getting things clean, when it's dirty, it kind of sticks in there. You start getting things clean and it wants to come out of there. You don't want to lose that in the sink. Also, there was a star washer that was on the outside, stuck to the outside of the reel handle there. So you want to be mindful of that. All right, let's start putting this old gal back together. And I guess we'll start with the drag wheel. And whether it matters or not, I don't know. But the way it was before, those little 4 holes faced the front of the reel. And then we had the drag adjustment screw. And remembering that this one is in fact righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So we're going to go clockwise to screw it back in. And you can go all the way, you don't want to get real tight, but all the way till it stops. That way your drag will be completely off when you put the pressure plate back on. Alright, now we've got our, we got to remember to put on our anti-reverse pawl, and I think it went on with the acute tip facing towards the front, but we'll stick this main gear in here and see if that makes any sense. Yep, that's the way it goes. Alright, and so we should go ahead and grease our main gear and oil the shaft. Come on, you. And just pack those teeth. Mop up any excess. And then some oil. Probably should take a little steel wool to that shaft. Oh yeah, that shined her up good. Alright, and then a little bit of oil there. And then we can slink that down into the housing. And at that point, it'll be a good idea, so we can hold it in place, to put the handle back on and the little star washer and the bolt. What am I missing here? Am I missing something? No, I guess it's just... Yeah, that's all right. I'll tighten that down a little further later. So the anti-reverse is working properly. Now, we're ready for the grease and oil the pinion gear and shaft. So we'll start putting a little, packing the teeth of the pinion gear. And where'd my oil go? Get a little oil up underneath there. And then here. And then here. And then slink that back down inside the housing and engage that. And I think now we should be able to more easily tighten that screw down. Because it's, now you got the pinion gear holding the thing tight up against the side, so that I don't want to strip that, but boy, I don't want to seem like that was kind of wanting to spin in there. I don't want to tighten that any further. Don't want to strip that out. All right. I think we're ready for button and side plate. Make sure get this button as clean as I can. And this is going to be where it contacts the axle shaft, so we can put a little grease there. And we could drop a little oil inside that bushing and kind of lay that in there. our side plate in place and run that screw through there. Not going to tighten it all the way down until I get this screw in. Should have cleaned out those screws. There's some gunk in there. Should have probably taken them out to the wire wheel, but oh well. Now we can tighten those down. Okay, now we're ready for a pressure plate. Probably should have put a little oil on the threads of that drag screw, but that's okay. So we lay our pressure plate with that tab inside that parallel slot on the drag adjustment screw, and then you can put just a light coat of grease on that. Clean off this drag washer a bit. There's some old dirt and grease on there, and then just get a little grease on your fingers and just slather that up a little bit, just ever so slightly. You don't want to over grease. And because this spool rotates around the spindle when the drag is engaged, you definitely want to grease that. And then this little shelf here that activates the pickup pin. So now we're ready for the spool, and there's your ridges for your bait clicker. So you can put that on. You can hear the bait clicker. And then, I don't like this design really, but I can see there's, even at the lowest drag setting, there's not enough space there between the spool and the groove in which the E-clip goes for a metal washer. So basically this drag washer, whoops, I better lubricate that, does right up against the E-clip. Not my favorite design. You would think you'd want a nice smooth metal washer there first, and then, but there's no room between that and the E-clip. So then you can slide your E-clip on there. Make sure that's fully engaged. Can't believe this is going so fast. I keep thinking I've forgotten something, but put a little oil so that it gets up underneath the pickup pin block there. So between the pickup pin block and the underside of the spinner head. No cuts on the spinner head, so that's good. And then it's a D-shaped hole, D-shaped shaft, so line up the flat sides. And sometimes pushing the button here will get you more threads showing. And then thread on your nut there. And tighten that down. I'll get a little bit of lubricant, some real oil, in the crank knob. And now we're ready to screw on this newly cleaned cap. Well, we better check to make sure the pickup pin's working. So there you can see the pickup pin is out. Push the button, it goes in. Wind it, comes back out, so everything's fine there. I'm sure the drag's fine. You could, if you want to check the drag, just take that nut off, take the spinner head off, hold on to the spool and crank, and at low crank it'll be easy. High crank, highest crank, you'd hardly be able to turn the handle. But screw the cap back on. Wipe her down. I think you'll see a big improvement in the appearance of the thing. That was all dirt in there. But much better rotation now that it's cleaned and lubricated. And so there you have a circa 1983, pretty much all metal, except for the knob, handle knob, and the button, Daiwa Apollocast 108S, made in Korea. So, nice little fishing reel. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.